In this chapter, we're going to work on the front fender area right here. And what we're going to do is take the hood object we've already made and just extend that over to cover this whole area here. And like I mentioned in the last chapter, we're not going to be including details like the hole cutout for the headlight or the hole over here either. We're going to be doing them later on. Right now, we're just going to make one solid mesh that doesn't have those kinds of details. So let me get out of full screen and let's start off by duplicating this. Since we're going to be using this as the final hood object later, I'm going to make a duplicate before I start extruding it and maybe changing it. So I'll press Shift and D to make a duplicate and right click to keep it in place. Then I'll press the M key to move it to a new layer, and let's move it to the second layer right there. And now let's right click on that to select it, and I'll press numpad 7 to go into top view, and now we can start making some extrusions. So let's press tab to go into edit mode, and let's hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select the whole set of edges, and we're going to extrude that to the right to meet up with this blueprint line. So let's press E, and then middle click Z drag to the right to constrain it to the X axis, and we'll drop it right about there. Now let's take all these vertices and just line them up on the blueprints. So I'll select that one, press G, and I'll move it up to that intersection right there. And I'll select that one, and I'll move it over, and I'll move it up as well to kind of keep this curvature going upward. And I'll do the same thing with every vertex down the line. Let's get it over the white line, make sure you keep the curvature going up, and so on. And now let's take these vertices and press numpad 1 to go into front view, and we'll move them all up to meet up with the blueprint line right here. So I'll select that one, I'll press G and then Z, move it straight up on the Z axis to right there, and I'll do the same with the other vertices as well. It gets a little bit weird over here, so what I'm going to do with that vertex selected, I'll press numpad 3 to go into side view, and we'll just match these vertices up in side view. Where are we? So let me see, we got two sets of we got one set of, well, we got two lines there, is what I'm trying to say. Which one are we matching up with? We're going to be matching up with the top line. So let me go back to this one. And here's the other vertex that it's connected to. It's a little bit lower than the white line, but I think I'll keep this in the middle of the white line because that's typically what we've been doing. So I'll move that up on the Z axis just a little bit. Then we'll select the next vertex that's connected to it, press G and then Z, move that up into the middle of the white line. And we'll keep doing that until all of these lines are, or all of these vertices are aligned. All right, let me hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select the whole set. I'll press numpad 3 for side view, and I'm just looking at the highlighted orange edges, just making sure that curvature looks nice and smooth from left to right. And then we go into front view and make sure it looks good there. Yes, it does. And top view. All right, everything looks good. Now we can extrude this to the right to meet up with this line right here. So let's press E to extrude and middle click as you drag to the right to constrain it to the X axis, and we'll drop that right about there. Now I want to straighten this line out a little bit. So I'll press S, and actually it's still scaling on the active selection. Let me right click to cancel that, and I'll press the comma key to switch back to bounding box scaling. Then I'll press S and then X, and we'll scale it until it's almost flat to right there, and then left click. Now let's press G and then X, move that over on top of the blueprint line. And now what we're going to do is just zoom in and move all these vertices to make sure that they're on that white line. So I'm going to select that one, I'll press G twice, and I'll just slide it to the left, just like that. I'm pressing G twice because that'll automatically constrain it to the X axis because these edges here are straight, so it's sliding along the straight edge. So I'll just do this all the way down the line. And if I need to, I'm going to hold the Shift key for very small, precise movements as I'm moving these. So I'll press G twice, then I'll hold Shift, and I'll move it in very small increments. Now when it comes to this vertex down here, I think I want to follow this curvature, or this line right here. So let me just press G, and I'll move it up to about right there so it follows that curve. And now what we'll do is go into front view and make sure everything matches up. So let me press numpad 1 for front view. And as you can see in the blueprints, this flat area here actually dips down a little bit as it goes to the right. So let me hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select them all. Then I'll press G to move it, and I'll press the down arrow just a few times until we have the right incline. That looks about right. Then I'll press enter. And I actually don't think we need to do much more with that. Let me press the Z key for shaded view, see how things are looking so far. Now we got a round edge right here, but once we're done the general shell of the object, we'll add some extra edge loops to sharpen up that ridge there. Now one thing I want to take care of is the spacing right here. All of these edge loops are tighter over here, and then we have this empty space over there. That's definitely going to affect the curvature. Let me press the N key for the right side toolbar, and I'll switch the matte cap over to our red. Let me press tab to get out of edit mode, and let's see how things look. So it's kind of hard to tell how much it's affecting it, but I definitely know that it is. So in order to get a more perfect curvature there, what we're going to do is space these edge loops out a little bit more consistently. The first thing we'll do is give ourselves a little bit more workspace. I'll press the N key to get rid of that toolbar, and then press Control and up for full screen. I keep forgetting to do that. Alright, so now let's hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select the whole set. And what we're going to do is basically average out the positioning of the vertices between this set of edges and this set of edges. So to do that, press G twice to edge slide, and we'll slide that all the way up to right there and drop it. And then press G twice and slide it back down to about right there. So you can see things are already starting to even out in terms of the spacing. So we'll do the same thing with the edge loop next to it. Hold Alt and right click on that edge loop, press G twice, drag it to the right so it's more aligned with the right side edges. We'll drop it there, then press G twice and slide it back down to the middle. And now everything is nice and even, or at least mostly so. But the problem with that is it kind of flattened out the area. So let me press numpad 1 for front view. And you can see this edge right here as we follow it up is pretty much a perfect diagonal, because when we were evening out the positioning of the vertices, it kind of just flattened out that area. So all we have to do is just move these edge loops down a little bit. So with this edge loop here still selected, I'll press G and then Z, and I'll move it down just a little bit like that to about right there, and then left click. We'll do the same thing with this edge loop. So let's hold Alt, right click on that edge there, press G, and then I'm going to press the down arrow a few times, just for more precision. And I'll drop it right there and press Enter. All right, so does that look good? Yeah, I think that looks good. Let's check the wireframe of the subsurf. So I'll press Z to get out of shaded view, then I'll press Tab to get out of edit mode. And let's just follow this curvature on the subsurf. And all right, that's looking pretty good. It's kind of hard to tell because this area up here is rounded when it's not supposed to be. So let me press Tab to go back into edit mode. And I'll press Control and R to add a loop cut. I'll add one there and I'll drag it up to the top. So let's create a ridge there, just like it was intended. So I'll do the same thing on the right side. And then press Tab to get out of edit mode. And let's just make sure the reflections pass through nice and smoothly. Alright, so now what we'll do is press Tab to go back into edit mode, and let's get rid of these edge loops that we added in. That was just for visualization at this point. We'll add them back in later, but right now it just complicates things by giving us extra vertices to work with. So with that edge loop selected, I'll press X and delete the edge loop. Then I'll hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select that edge loop. Then I'll press X and delete that edge loop as well. Alright, now let's press numpad 3 to go into side view. And what we're going to do now is work on the actual wheel well by adding in a circle. Now let me center the wheel here, and I'll left click right in the middle of the wheel right there. And let's press Shift and A and add in a mesh circle. Let me zoom out. There it is. Let's press the T key for the left side toolbar and just make sure there's 32 vertices. That's the default amount, so it should be like that. And let me press T to get rid of that. Then I'll press S to scale this down. And let's scale it down to meet up with the wheel well circle right there. So I'm going to scale it down and then press G to move it. And try and get all those vertices, at least the ones at the top, in place as best as possible. Alright, I think that looks good. And we'll just move some of these vertices down a little bit later. But first, let's make sure we have vertices where we need them. For example, we have these lines coming down to meet up around here, so we should have a vertex right there. So let me just press R, and I'll rotate that to right there. So we have a vertex where we need it there. And I don't really think it's important to have, well, maybe this one here. Let me select that. I'll press G twice, and I'll slide it up. Or I'll just press G and move it to right there. We don't want to get these vertices too close to each other, because then that's going to ruin the circular shape. So I'm just being careful here. Alright, so cool. We got vertices where we need them. And now let's trim the excess. So I'll press A to deselect everything, press the B key for border select, and I'll left click and drag over all of these vertices there. and press X and delete them. Now let's take these vertices, I'll press G and I'll move them right over the blueprints like that, and like that. And let's do the same thing on the other side. Alright, now let's zoom out. And now we have to align all these in front view, so let's select all the back vertices first. So I'll press the A key to deselect everything, then press B, and left click and drag over all the back end vertices like that. And I'll press numpad 1 for front view. We'll need to bring these all over to the right. So I'll press G and then X, move them all the way over there, and then press A to deselect them, then press B and left click and drag over all of them, and press G and then X, and move them right on top of the blueprint line at the very top. So let me do that again. I'll press G and X until it's right in the center of those lines. And now we'll just align each vertex beneath that by holding Shift, right clicking on that to deselect it, then press G and then X, move it to the left. You can hold Shift for very precise movements. Put that in the middle of the line like that. Let me move that vertex over to the left a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to go down and move each vertex to the left on the x-axis, right in the middle of the blueprint line. Alright, now let's go back up to the top, and we'll do the same thing for these. Now our blueprint line for the wheel well is about to be overtaken by the lines for the tire. So what we'll do now is I'll zoom out a little bit and press A to deselect that, then press B and left click and drag over all those vertices. And let me zoom in up here now. Now let's press G and then X. Move that over the blueprint line there. But you'll see we only have a little bit of that line left to use as a reference. So let me hold Shift, right click on that and then do it again so that it highlights that selection. And let's go down to the pivot point menu and change to active element so we can rotate around that highlighted vertex. Now I'll just press the R key and rotate it until that line is aligned with the blueprint line right there. We're not going to worry about curving the bottom part there. I'm not really sure how much curvature is there anyway. It's all very mellow in that section. Alright, so that looks good. Let me drag that back over. Come on, there we go. Alright, now let's press numpad 7 for top view, and let's see how that lines up with the blueprints. And it actually looks perfect. Cool. Did a good job with that. Let's press numpad 3 for side view again. And let's select the whole circle by hovering over one of the vertices and pressing the L key. That'll select all the vertices connected to the one you're hovering over. And let's press the comma key for bounding box scaling, because now we're going to extrude this circle and scale it up for the outer circle so we have a flat area around the wheel well. So let's press E to extrude, and then press S to scale it up. And it's going to scale up kind of disproportionately, so pay attention to the bottom right and line that up with the blueprints the best you can, and then left click. Now let's press G. I'll just press the up arrow until the top vertices are aligned as well. That looks good. I'll press enter. And let's go into wireframe by pressing Z and just make sure everything's lined up. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, cool. Now let me select those two vertices. Let me make sure these are straight in front view. So I'll press numpad 1 for front view. And you can see they're slanted up toward the right a little bit. So let me rotate the view and I'll hold Alt and right click on that edge loop there. We just need to move all these vertices to the left in front view. So let's press numpad 1 for front view again. And I'll press G, and I'll just press the left arrow until I think things are straightened out. I think that looks good. Let me select those two again. And it's still slanted to the right a little bit, so let me do that again. Now let's select them one more time, and cool, they're straight. Alright, so we're done with the wheel well area for now. Actually, let's make one more modification. Let's just fix these stray vertices down here. So I'll select that one, I'll press G twice, and I'll just slide it on up to right there. Let's do the same thing with the other side. Select that, press G twice, and slide it up to the blueprint line, and left click. Alright, cool, we're done with that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to work from the right side here with this line, and then we'll just face everything from right to left. And the reason I'm kind of skipping around is because I want to start off by putting down lines where I know they need to be, and where I have references on the blueprints that I can actually follow. Then we'll kind of fill everything else in just based on those lines. So now let's go into top view by pressing numpad 7. And I'm going to take these two vertices here, I'm going to extrude them up a little bit more. So let me press the Z key for wireframe. And actually, just as a quick note, you can see our shape of the hood area kind of messed up a little bit here. There's a bit of an overlap. You don't need to worry about that because we're just using this as a guide mesh simply for its curvature. We already have the hood object duplicated in another layer, and that already has the perfect shape. So in the end, we're just going to be shrink wrapping that on top of this. So we can actually be a little bit sloppy with this, which is another reason why I really love this technique. You don't really have to sweat the small stuff. So let me select these two vertices. I'll press E, and then middle click as I drag up to constrain it to the Y-axis, and I'll drop it right about there. Now I'll select that vertex and press G twice, and I'll slide it down to right there because we're going to follow along this blueprint line here. I'll do the same thing with this. I'll select that, press G twice, and slide it down. Now let's get these situated in side view. So let me press numpad 3 for that. And I'll press G and then Z, and I'll move that down to the middle of that top line there. Then I'll select this one, and I'll press G. I'll move it to the middle of that intersection right there. Now, instead of extruding that vertex all the way down the line, what we're going to do is take the vertices over here, duplicate them, and move them over. That makes sure we have the same amount of vertices over here, so they'll perfectly connect with the ones here, and we'll have some nice clean facing. So let me right-click on that, hold Shift, and I'll right-click on all of them up to there, I guess. Looks good to me. Let's press Shift and D to duplicate it now, and middle click as I drag to the right, and we'll drop it right here. And actually, let me move all of these up a little bit as well, because there definitely is a slant on the side of the car, and you can see that on the reference picture as well. Kind of all slants up a little bit toward the end of the door there. So let me press G, and I'll move them all up so that the bottom vertex is in the middle of that intersection right there. We're actually going to ignore this little sliver at the bottom there. You can see it in the reference photo at the bottom of the car right there. So what we're going to do in the end is just, after we're done modeling the side, we'll just simply take the bottom vertices and extrude them inward instead of having to deal with them right now. Alright, so now what we'll do is just move these vertices to the important parts of the reference line. So for example, I'll take that vertex, press G, and I'll move it right there. Come on, there we go. I'll take that one and I'll move it right there. And this one right there, and so on. And these I'll just align. There's no real important part on this part of the curve. And now let's right click on the top vertex to select it and press numpad 7 to go in top view. And now let's align this with the blueprint lines here. So I'll press G and then X. I'll hold Shift and I'll get it right in the middle of that blueprint line there. And we won't be able to go all the way down, unfortunately, because you can see we lose sight of that line right here as everything kind of pulls inward for this dip right there. So we're just going to have to basically eye that up using the reference photo and try and get the same curvature that we see. So let's select this vertex. We'll just align this as far down as we can. I'll press G and then X and I'll move that down to there. So looks like that's as far down as I can go with those vertices. However, we can still align the bottom 3 because this part sticks out furthest on the side of the car. So that would be this line right here. So let's select these 3, which are the bottom 3 vertices, right? Yep. Let's go back in top view. And let's get this top vertex there, right on top of that line. So I'll press G and then X, move it right there, and that's good to go. And now we have these 3 strays right there that we need to do something with. So with them selected, I'll press numpad 1 for front view, and let's see what we need to do. So the curvature is generally, it bumps out like this, and then it comes inward, and then it goes back out to meet up with this vertex right there. It's part of the 3 bottom ones. So let me press G and then X. I'll move it to about right there so that this line is pretty much flat. Then I'll hold Shift and I'll right click on that to deselect it. Then press G and then X again. And we'll drop that right about there. And then we'll deselect that one and we'll move that in a little bit further. So let me hold Alt and I'll right click on that edge loop there just to see how our curvature is looking. And you know what, that's fine for now. Let's just continue. Let's continue on up and connect this to the top of the car. So let me press numpad 3 for side view. And I'll select that vertex. Then I'll press E to extrude it, and I'll move it up to right there. That's an important intersection right there that I think is covered in the top view, so we'll know exactly where to place this. So let's press numpad 7 for top view. Then press G and X, and move it right on top of that intersection there. Now holding Shift, let's right click on that vertex and press F to connect those with an edge. So here's what we got so far. The spacing here isn't exactly ideal, but we'll deal with that later. We're just trying to get the right shape for this at the moment. So let's press numpad 1 for front view and make sure everything's looking okay. I think I'll start bringing this stuff in a little bit sooner. So I'll select that vertex, press G, and I'll press the left arrow a few times and drop it there. Same thing with this. And I'll create pretty much a straight line there. And let me hold Alt, right click on that, and let's see the shape so far. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. It's generally what I'm seeing in the reference photo. Except the bottom part curves inward underneath the car a little bit more than I have it here. So let's do that now. Select that vertex, press G, then X, move it inward a little bit like that. And select this one, and do the same thing, move it in a lot. So we have this slight curvature right there. Let's see what we got. Alright, so I think that's good enough to work with for now. Let's press numpad 3 and go back into side view. Alright, now we can start facing things up. So let's right click on that vertex and then hold shift and right click on those three as well, and then press the F key to create a face. Now let's select these two vertices and press F to create the next face up. And what we'll do right here is just create a triangle for now. We'll turn it into a quad later on, but for right now, let's select those three vertices and press F. And let me select these two now and press F all the way up until right there. We'll stop right there. We need to move a few vertices around because we need a vertex right here in order to draw this hard edge going through the curvature. So what we'll do is just move some of these vertices down. Actually, let's start off by moving this vertex down. So I'll select that one and I'll press G twice to slide it down right above that white line there. And I'll drop it there. Then I'll press G and I'll just move it on top or right in the middle of the white line like that. Now it's a little bit close to this vertex, so I'm going to have to start moving some vertices down. So let's start off with this one here. I'll select that, press G twice, and I'll slide down a little bit like that. Whoops, would help if I left clicked. This mouse, I don't understand it sometimes. Alright, so let's select this vertex next. And again, I'll press G twice and I'll slide that down. And then I'll take this one, press G twice and slide that down, right into the middle. Alright, let me press A once or twice so everything's selected so I can see the spacing a little bit better. And that spacing looks pretty even to me. Now let's just take that vertex, press G, and then press the left arrow a few times until it's in the middle of the blueprint line. And I'll do the same thing with that one. Is everything else on the line? Yeah. Now we move some vertices around, so it might have screwed things up from front view. But before we go into front view, let's actually fill in this area here. We have this long edge, so obviously the spacing here is incorrect. We're going to need to let's add two more vertices there. So I'll press Control and R for the cut tool and hover over that edge and then scroll up on the mouse wheel until we have two cuts and then left click. Now just press G and slide that over the blueprint line like that. Alright, now let's press numpad 1 for front view and let's fix this curvature up. So with these two vertices still selected, I'll press G. I'll just move them out a little bit like that. And the rest of the curvature actually might be okay. I think I'll select that vertex there. I'll press G. I'll move it to the right just a little tiny bit. And let me press A once or twice to select everything. Just make sure that curvature is looking nice all the way down. This vertex might be sticking out a little bit too much, so I'll select that. I'll press G and press the left arrow on the keyboard once or twice. Alright, that curvature looks nice and restored. So let me go into side view again. I'll press numpad 3. Make sure everything's still sitting on the blueprint line. We're looking good. Cool. Now let's take care of this triangle right here. So I'll select these two vertices and I'll press Control and B to bevel it. And I'll stretch it apart just a little bit like that. Right there. And now what we need to do is take care of this little tiny triangle. Well, it's a little tiny quad actually. And what we'll do is just slide these vertices up. I'll slide that vertex up and I'll slide this one down and we'll merge them with the top and bottom vertices. So in order to do that merging automatically, let's turn on this tool in the header for automatically merging. And then with that vertex selected, I'll press G twice, and slide it up to that vertex until it collides. Left click, and now they become one vertex. I'll do the same thing with this. I'll select that, press G twice and slide it down, and then left click. And now let's remember to turn that tool off, else it'll cause some problems for us. All right, so that's a quad there now. Now we can just cleanly make some loop cuts through it. We don't have any triangles screwing anything up. But we're not going to do that quite yet. Now let's add a couple of more loop cuts just to define this area a little bit more. So I'm going to press Control and R right around there until I see that purple horizontal line. Then I'll left click, then I'll press E, and then I'll align it with the bottom. So let's press F to switch the alignment with the top. And I'll drag that up to about right there to create a sharper edge right there. Now let me press Tab to get out of edit mode, and then I'll press the T key for the left side toolbar and choose Smooth Shading. Then I'll press T again, and I don't think we need the reference picture at the moment, so I'm going to press Control and up to full screen this. And I'll go back in edit mode by pressing Tab. And let's add an extra loop cut here. We'll have to add 2 loop cuts, one on each side of this, but for right now we'll just make one on the inside. So let me press Control and R right there, left click, and I'll drag that to the right to about right there. So that gives me a sharper edge right there. So we're just getting some more definition in right now. And we'll add one edge loop through right here. So I'll press Control and R here, left click, and I'll drag that down to about right there. We don't really want a hard edge at the top of that, but we do want to sharpen it up just a tad, and that actually looks good. So we have a lot of clutter going on right down here, but we'll deal with that later on. Let's just work with getting the main shape of this whole area done first. So let's put this area aside for right now. I want to toss some faces on top of the wheel well here. I just want to get as many faces as I can down, just so I can better define the shape, so I'll better know what I'm doing and what the plan is. So let's see. Let's select these 4 vertices right there, since they seem to be most aligned with each other. And then I'll press F to create a face there. And then let's select those 2, and I'll press F once, twice, 3 times. I don't want to do it one more time because this face here would be way too stretched out. So I'll stop right there. Now let me select those 2 vertices. Whoops, not all those, just those 2. And I'll press F down the line all the way to right there. This vertex here actually looks a little bit out of place, so let's fix that. I'll select that and I'll press numpad 7 for top view. And let's follow this curvature coming down. So I'll press G and then X to move it on the X-axis all the way over to about right there. And I want to keep the edge aligned with the blueprints right there. So I'm going to slide this up a little bit. So I'll just press G twice and slide it up to right there. And now let's press numpad 1 for front view. We'll need to align it in this view as well. You can see it's off of the blueprints. So I'll just press G and then Z and move it up on the Z axis to right there. All right, now let's actually define these edges right here and right here, just for visualization. So let me press Control and R and add a loop cut right there. I'll left click and I'll drag that up toward the top like that. Let's add another loop cut on the top side of that. Now instead of surrounding this loop cut here with edge loops, we're just going to put one up top because we're going to be editing this whole area in here. So let me press Control and R up top, left click and drag that to the right to right there. All right, let me press Tab to get out of edit mode and see how that looks. It's looking pretty sweet. It's taking shape. And again, for right now, that's just for visualization. I'll probably end up deleting those edge loops when we edit the front end of this. Now before we work with this area right here, this face right here has been bugging me. I think it's too stretched out. I think we went one face too many to the right there. So let me select those 2 vertices so that edge is selected. And then I'll press X and I'll erase the edge, and that'll get rid of that face. And now we can go one more face up in this stack here. So let me select those 2 vertices and press F, and that gets me one more face going up. And I think that all works out a lot better. So now let's create some curvature here. Let's go into top view by pressing numpad 7. And let me see if I can see the curvature. Well, the curvature kind of is just a little bit rounded right here instead of the straight line that we have. So let me rotate the view, and I'll press Control and R right through there, and then scroll up on the mouse wheel until I have 4 cuts. Then I'll left click and right click to keep them in the middle. Now let's press numpad 7 for top view. What we'll do is just pull these to the left and create a gentle slope there, or gentle curve. So I'll press G, then I'll press the left arrow, and I'm looking at the top edges. I'll move them until those top edges are almost straight. So I'll press enter right about there. So this area up here is fairly straight, but still has a slight slope to it. And now let me rotate the view, let's select just the two middle edge loops and move them in. So I'll hold Alt and right click on that edge loop, then hold Alt and Shift and right click on that edge. Now I'll press numpad 7 for top view, and we just need to move these to the left a little bit now. So let me press G, and I'll press the left arrow until I get to about right there. I think looks good. So let me select everything, and you can see our curvature there now. To get a better idea, I'm going to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select some random edge loop in the middle. Then I'll press numpad 7 for top view, and let's see how that looks. Can't really tell how it looks with all the other vertices in the way, so I'm going to press Shift and D to duplicate it and move it over here. And yeah, that looks fine to me. I'm just making sure it doesn't look a little bit wonky like that, just making sure we have a nice consistent slight curvature throughout. Alright, let me press B, and I'll left click and drag over all of them, then I'll press X and delete the vertices. Alright, so that area is actually situated right now. Now we need to add a couple of edge loops up here and somehow connect it all to the two vertices down there. So I'll need at least two edge loops there, but I also think I want this edge loop here to continue its curvature right up through here. So let's add 3 loop cuts through here. So let me press Ctrl and R until I have a horizontal loop cut going through that, and then I'll scroll up on the mouse until I have 3 cuts. And left click and right click to keep them in the middle. And now what I'm going to do is make sure that this edge loop here follows the same exact path and angles as these edges right here, all the way down from left to right. So let me press numpad 3 for side view. And you can see where this edge loop starts to pull away and start going downward. We don't want that to happen. We want it to continue straight all the way down to the right. So let's see. This vertex looks like it's in a fine position, but it starts pulling downward starting at this vertex there. So I'll select that, and then I'll simply press G twice and slide it up until it's the same angle as the edge above it. So this angle here, same edge as that one there, or same angle as that edge up there. We'll do the same thing with this one. Slide that up until it's the same angle. All right. Now we have a bigger space here than down here, so we'll just split the difference and we'll select that vertex, press G twice and slide it right to the middle. And same thing with this one here. All right, cool. Now right now this area is flat. We want to make that bumped out just a little tiny bit. So let me hold Alt. I'll right click on that edge to select the whole edge loop. Then I'll hold Alt and Shift and I'll right click on those. And let me press numpad 1 for front view. Now all we're going to do is press G, move it up a little bit, and move it to the right a little bit just to bump that out just a touch. And we'll have to do the same thing with the middle edge loops. Let me hold Alt, right click on that one, because right now this area is flat. So we need to bump it out in the middle just a touch. So I'll press G, I'll press the up arrow a few times and then the right arrow a couple times. And that looks fine. Now as this curvature comes down, it's actually a little bit more rounded right here, and it gets a little bit more round as it goes down toward the bottom. So let me press numpad 1 for front view, and let's just move these vertices just a little bit. So I'll select these 3 vertices, and I'll press G, I'll press the up arrow a few times, press enter, and same thing with the middle vertex. Press G and move it up just a touch. We'll do the same thing with these, except we'll move them just a little bit more because it's going to gradually get rounder as it goes down. So I'll press G, I'll move it up a few touches of the up arrow more, and I'll move it to the right a little bit to keep it centered. And we'll drop it right there. I'll move the middle vertex up a little bit too. These changes are subtle. It's probably not going to make a huge difference, but just adding them in, just preparing for when we extrude these down to create the rounded front bumper area. All right, we're almost done with the vertices up here. Let me just go into top view by pressing numpad 7. And you can see when we slid these vertices up that they're now kind of off center in top view. We have to align this edge with this one now. So these are pretty much straight, except they're slanting to the right ever so slightly. So let's start off with these 2 vertices down here. I'll select that one. I'll press G, and I'll press the right arrow until it's slanted to the right just a touch. Same thing with this one. And we'll do the same with these up here. Now these lines here should almost be totally straight because these lines here are almost totally straight. All right, that looks fine. All right, now let's get to work filling in this area here. So let me select these 4 vertices and press F. Now we got this edge sloping downward, so I'm going to fix that by selecting that vertex. I'll press G twice to slide it up to about right there. And let's slide this one up just a touch as well. Alright, that actually looks fine. So let's press Ctrl and R to add a loop cut right through the middle, and scroll up on the mouse until we have 4 cuts, because we have 4 vertices at the top we need to connect to. Then left click and right click to keep them centered. Now we can just face up that slot right there. So let's select these 2 vertices and press F all the way down the line like that. And there we go. Cool. I don't think we need to do anything else with that. Now we need to face up this area into here. So let me select those 2 vertices and press F. And then I'll select these 2 and press F all the way down the line. So it's all faced up. However, you can see the spacing is off, and that's definitely having an effect on the surface. You can see the curvature is pretty wavy. But all we need to do now is just push some vertices around and fix up that curvature. So let's start off with that vertex right there. We'll just slide that up and to the left a little bit. So let me press G twice, and I'll slide it up that edge to about right there. And then let's smooth out this curve right here too. So I'll press G twice and slide it up this time to about right there. Let me go into side view. And this is a 5-point intersection right here, which is not ideal, but it's certainly not as bad as triangles and n-gons when it comes to screwing up subsurf geometry. Again, it's not ideal, but we still do have all these quads around it. And this kind of intersection is just, sometimes impossible to avoid when you're dealing with having a circular area connected to a square grid. So what we'll do is just try to hide this in the area right here that we'll be cutting out. So I'll press G twice and I'll slide it up a little bit to right there. I don't think it's going to cause any problems anyway. It's just something we got to keep our eye on. Alright, now let's smooth out the rest of these vertices down the line. So I'll select that vertex, press G twice, and I'll slide it up to about right there. And I'll take that and press G twice and slide that up just a little bit to right there. Alright, now let's deal with these vertices up here. So I'll select that one, press G twice and slide it down to the middle of these 2 vertices. I'll do the same thing with the rest of these. I'll slide that down, and that, and that. Alright, cool. Now let's see how the reflections are so far. Not bad, actually, not too bad. I don't think we got to do too much more. Everything's passing through pretty cleanly. And that 5-point intersection doesn't look like there's any trouble going on there. But again, even if there was, we have that situated right in an area we'll be cutting out. So it will at least fix most of any problem that might have arose from that. But yeah, everything looks good actually. Alright, let me just rotate the view, like real sharp angle like this. Make sure these curvatures make sense going all the way through. And yeah, everything looks decent. Cool. And actually, let's move this vertex a little bit too, just to space this area out a little bit better. So I'll select that and press G twice and slide it up to about right there, in the middle of that vertex and that one down there. We'll do the same thing with this. Press G twice, slide it up just a little bit. Alright, that looks all spaced out a little bit better. Can't really tell what difference it made to the reflections, but probably helped it a little bit. Alright, cool. We're done with that, and now we're going to straighten out the area down here. Let me press Ctrl and up to get rid of, or to get out of full screen. And you can see that area it has a bit of a curvature, but in the reference photo, it's definitely a straight edge all the way to the rim of the wheel well. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to straighten these things out. And to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to hold Alt and right click on that edge there to select the edge loop. And we'll just delete that for now and add it back in later on. So I'll press X and delete the edge loop. Now we just have this edge loop, that one, and the bottom one to deal with instead of 4. So let's see. Where do I want to straighten it out at? Alright, let's select that vertex there, hold Shift, and then select all of these, ending at that one right there. And then I'll press, or actually I'll just rotate the view like this. And let's go down into the header, into the pivot point menu, and select Active Element. That's why I selected that vertex last, because that's the vertex I want to scale things toward. So let me press S and then X to scale it on the X-axis toward that vertex. Then I'll hold Control for incremental snapping, scale down to that vertex down to 0, and then left click. So if I go into top view by pressing numpad 7, you can see we have a perfectly straight line now. And we'll do the same thing for the edges beneath that. So I'll select that, hold Shift, and select these. rotate the view, and then I'll press S and then X, hold Control and scale it down to 0 toward the vertex. And we'll do the same thing with the bottom. Now I'll press numpad 1 for front view, and we need to bring back that inward curvature that goes kind of underneath the car. So let me press G and then X. I'll bring that into about right there. And let me select the next set of vertices. Go back into front view, press G and then X and move that into right there. Cool, so that brings back that curvature going underneath the car. And right here you can see it fans out to the wheel well, which we see right here. However, it definitely looks like there's just a hint of a crease there, just a hint. But right now we have a very smooth transition. We don't have any kind of hint of a crease or a corner in there. So that's what we're going to add in now, just for a little extra effect in that area. Actually, let's add in a couple extra edge loops first. Like we need to redefine the edge right here. So let me press Ctrl and R right around there for a horizontal loop cut. I'll left click and I'll drag that up to the top and drop it right about there. Let's add an extra edge loop on the right side of this one as well to sharpen up the bevel around the wheel well rim. So let me press Ctrl and R around here for a vertical loop cut. I'll left click, and to make it align with the left side edges, I'll press E and then F. And then I'll drag it to right there. Let me go around the rim, make sure all those vertices got spaced out evenly. And they did, cool. Sometimes the alignments are a little off, but everything worked out fine in this case. All right, they're in place, and now we can work on that crease going diagonally down here. All right, so let's see. That vertex there has already been pulled backward, and that's at the base of that curvature right there. So that's situated right about here. Now all we have to do is draw a diagonal line and have that land right before this vertex. So let's press the K key for the knife tool. I'll highlight that vertex right there, then left click on it. Then I'll highlight that edge right next to that vertex, left click there, and then press enter. So that's going to be our crease line right there. But we need another diagonal line next to that to really define that as a crease and not just, again, have what we had before, which was a very smooth transition. So let me press numpad 3 for side view. And we'll use all these vertices right here to do the job. So let me select those two. I'll press G twice and I'll slide that to right there. And then I'll select this one, and I want the line to be less steep, a little bit more mellow, to about right there. So I'll press G twice, slide that to the right, and I'll select this one, press G twice, and slide that to the right. All right, so it's extended a little bit further than I pointed out, but I think that'll be fine. Now we just need to take this edge and make sure it's the same steepness as these edges there. So I'll select that vertex, press G twice, slide to the right just a little bit, and same thing with this one. Slide that to the right. And I'll press Z for shaded view. And it's kind of hard to get an idea of the crease with this kind of matte cap on because it's just pure reflection. So let me press the N key for the right side toolbar. I'll click on the matte cap preview and change it to the silver one. Then I'll press N again. And cool, there's our crease. Might be just a tad too defined, or is it good? I can't really tell. No, actually I think it's good. If we wanted to mellow that out though, I would select those two vertices, press G twice, slide to the right a little bit, and then that one, and then that one. I actually think that might be better. Yeah, that's good. So it's a subtle difference from the smooth transition we had before, but it definitely adds to the detail and accuracy of the model. Now just a couple more loose ends and we'll actually be done with this chapter. Let me go back into edit mode and I'll press numpad 3 for side view. I want to sharpen up this edge right here a little bit more by putting an edge loop above this middle one there. So let me press Ctrl and R right through the middle there, left click, and then press E to align it with the bottom edges, and we'll drop that right about there. Now we have these extra vertices there which are kind of overlapping other vertices. So what I'm going to do is I'll zoom out, press B, and then middle click and drag over all them to deselect them. Let me go down here. And now I'll press G twice and I'll slide them down to the middle like that. Now we have a lot of congestion going on over here. There's a lot of extra vertices that we don't need and we can kind of merge them together to clean the area up. So let me turn on this button down here in the header for automatic merging. And let's see, let me select these three vertices, not that one there. Then I'll press G twice, slide them down until they collide, and left click and they'll merge together. Now we end up having a triangle there, but that's kind of, it doesn't really matter in that area anyway. This edge here is supposed to pinch into nothing, which it does, and that doesn't really affect anything, I don't think. No, everything still looks perfectly fine. And now we have too many vertices on this edge here. It's kind of, well, it's not really affecting the shape too much, but I know we can clean it up. So let me select that vertex right there. I'll press G twice, slide it down to that one, and left click. Now they're merged together. We end up with a triangle here, but this part here is perfectly flat, so that's not going to cause any problems. Now let me select that vertex, press G twice, and slide it up. And now we can actually space these away from each other a little bit. So I'll select that one, press G twice, and slide it down to right there. And let's make sure that it's in the middle of these white lines. So I'll press G, move to the right just a touch. And then I'll select this one and do the same thing. So that kind of restores the perfectly circular shape we had going on there. In fact, maybe I should take this one and move it to the left a little bit. I don't know. It looks good. That's all that matters. We still have quite a few vertices in this area here, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the shape at all, at least not in any discernible way. So I'm just going to leave it as is. I think that's perfectly fine. Cool. All right, I actually think that's it. So it's awesome. It's actually starting to look like a 3D object now instead of just a flat hood. It's exciting. Everything's coming out pretty good so far. All right, cool. So that'll do it for this chapter. See you in the next one.